The first, months on a violin are hell for all concerned. Apart from learning how to improvise on the thing and develop my own language, I started building instruments. And when my father came to visit me in Australia, he saw what I'd been doing, and he said, "Oh yeah, I used to do a bit of that, In Japanese prisoner of war camp in the Second World War, he'd been there actually 3.5 years. And there was a concert pianist in the camp, and he asked my dad if he would draw up a piano keyboard on a table so he could practice silently and keep his... And my father thought, well, I'll just sort of try to actually make one. He was really improvising out of almost nothing. For example, everything that was left from the boiled rice he used as glue. Managed to get like a parachute cable, which he unwound and made the hair for the bow. But he still managed to make a sort of a cello-like instrument with 2 strings, which they called the Little Bastard. So obviously the instrument hacking is sort of genetic. Doing all these different kind of projects, living 5 lives in parallel, I really needed some help, I just can't do it all myself. So I thought, I'll invent a family that can help me, aid and abet me. Yeah, so in 1989 I got this scholarship in Berlin. As a result of that, they invited me to curate a violin festival. So there was a huge catalogue. In the CVs at the back were all these famous composers like John Cage and Stockhouse, and Dr. Johannes Rosenberg was there too. He put all the others to shame. Gave violin lessons to the Beatles, first violinist to climb Mount Everest, his music sent by NASA into outer space. I just made it up. And, lo and behold, there was a few people coming up to me and said, this is just, we never knew this. Who is this bloke? How do we get hold of him? How do we make tours? Then I brought out some books. So these books are suddenly full of things which, 19-string violin, what kind of joke is that? But hey, this actually exists, Occasionally there were albums made by Rosenbergs, not under my name, but under their name. I plagiarized my own work to support it. Actually, I don't know, there is no word in English for what it is. I mean, you can't plagiarize yourself, can you, or can you? I like that confusion, that line between what is acceptable in our sort of sense of reality and in most people's perception of history, and what is unacceptable. I will return to the Japanese period of the Rosenbergs later and talk about the kamikaze violin. So actually, first of all, there was just Dr. Johannes Rosenberg. He would take care of classical music, musicology, that kind of thing, research. Gradually, the sort of family evolved, and occasionally I would write articles on their behalf, or articles seemed to appear written for them, about them, by other people. We needed a jazzer, so there was Doc Rosenberg, legendary bebop player. Doc is in jail for violating legal issues with the Musicians' Union here. And then there was also Jimmy Rosenberg, who's started out as a sort of country and western player and then became a sort of heavy metal violin star. And he moved to East Berlin, where he committed suicide.
Zur bestimmenden Wert- und Weltordnung geworden sind. Wir beginnen unseren Beitrag direkt vor dem Haus, in dem Johannes Rosenberg einen großen Teil seiner frühen Schaffensperiode zugebracht hat. Das Gebäude ist heute halb Museum, halb Archiv, und es ist ganz dem Werk des großartigen Geigers und Komponisten aus der südlichen Hemisphäre gewidmet. Zahllose Musiker und Musikologen aus aller Welt pilgern hierher, um die vielfältigen Aspekte seiner innovativen Arbeit kennenzulernen und zu erforschen.
In the Pink Violin, basically, Rosenberg predicts the end of capitalism and communism, and after it would follow the age of shopping. And then the second book was Violin Music in the Age of Shopping, which basically proves, it's the evidence that the prediction had become true, which obviously is clear it has.
Dream, 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 dream.
Joseph Cheris I met some years later. I got either a letter or a phone call saying he'd been in a car with the composer Phil Niblock in Slovakia, and they just sort of stopped the car somewhere, and Phil looked up and there was a sign that said violin. And so he said, you should know there is a town really called Violin. And it was owned by a Count Violini, who lost it in a card game at the beginning of the 20th century. Perfect. I said, well, you know, you'll have to be the director of the Rosenberg Museum then if you keep doing things like this, you know. I pointed out that the job was not paid and that nobody in their right mind would possibly accept it, so he took it. And he's been the director ever since. He went to the mayor and asked to have a building for the museum. And the mayor thought, oh, great, you know, violin, Mozart, you know, just what violin needs. Violin's got a population of about 80 people who are basically alcoholic farmers. They gave Joseph the football club, which is like this classic East Bloc building. So we had a concert to inaugurate this. And the mayor came with his wife. Also a coachload of people came from Vienna and from Bratislava to Violin for this thing, so they descended on this town. And there's just a complete sort of bunch of nutcases. I mean, there's Ben Patterson, who's like one of the Fluxus guys. He's sawing up violin cases and putting them in a blender and making marmalade. The mayor and his wife are going, Jesus Christ, this is not what we signed up for. And there's a guy in a tractor shouting at us to go away, we don't like violins. The local kind of thugs challenged the Rosenberg Museum to a football match. And somehow the Rosenberg team won, which is beyond, you know, comprehension how they could possibly have won. After the football match, the guys threatened to kill Joseph if he didn't get the hell out of there, in all seriousness. So the Rosenberg Museum, having found its proper place, very soon discovered it wasn't their proper place at all. It's a thoroughly dangerous place where you could get killed if you mentioned the word violin. Well, the thing about the Rosenberg Museum is that you create something. Now, if you hang on to it yourself, you know the parameters, and it's never ever going to go further than your imagination and your experience. But if you create something and give it to somebody else, or give it to many people, you have no idea where it's going to go. And it will guarantee it will go somewhere where your imagination and experience has not been.